Good grief, once the lights go up, I can see absolutely nothing out in front of me whatsoever. Thank you very much indeed, Gail. There are microphones certainly on the back of the middle tier there for questions. There's some roving mics. Pete Garber's got one there, and we've got one down there as well. Questions, please. We've got about 40 minutes for questions. Straight away, please, Edward Chapman.
Mr. Castro, you alluded to some improvements. Could you give us an inkling to what improvements you'd like to see? And please, in the negotiations in the future, don't trust England and Wales, the member states, to make decisions, because they haven't done very well in the past. They're very keen on the gold plating, which has just left us financially out of pocket big time.
Well, thanks. As I said, there are a lot of improvements in our mind. You know, we have a clear picture of what we want, because we already voted our report. So if you take a look at George Lyon or Albert Dess' report, which was voted by the Comagri and the European Parliament, you can have a broad picture of what is our goal. Of course, when we go in the specific question, arise a lot of problems, because we need to have, from criticism, go to the proposal. When we go to the proposal, we need to make an agreement with the Council. We need to share with the Council. As Martin said many times, sometimes we share the same criticism, but we don't share the same solution. And that is our goal. I mean, this is one of the problems we have to manage in the future. But I really think there are a couple of very general issues that we really can go in the same direction, Council and Parliament. I mean, it's greening. Everybody wants greening. We vote in favor of greening, but we want the greening to be applied easier in all farmers in Europe. It looks like that this greening is not easy to apply. There are many issues on the table. The question of first pillar and the environmentally measured scheme in the second pillar, how to manage. And the same question is in the South Europe, where permanent crop, trees, for example, how what to do? They have to cut the trees. If we have a specialized farm, olive tree specialized farm, what to do? We have to cut it, and the same for grapes. So there are many issues. We need to really focus on what kind of solution. But the question is how we can work together. We have to share as much as we can time in together, Council and member of the Comagri, to understand what is the direction. The direction should be more simplification. We don't want to give money back to Brussels. Even if we are a lot of positive, and 85% of the European farmers apply greening, 85%, maybe this is too much, the 15% of the first direct payment means 5 billion euro come back to Brussels. That is a tremendous impact on the budget. So I really think we need to do something. There are many ideas. There is a menu of the greening. This is one of the ideas that we are working. There is another idea. We want to reduce the 7% of ecological land to reduce to 3 or 4% by the farmers, and the other part will be allowed to the administrative regions to manage. So there are many ideas. Of course, we need to find together with the Council. But the problem of timing is there. But we show, and I conclude, Peter, we show in the milk package that the Parliament co-decision process will go fast, because we approve a legislative test in a very, very short time. So co-decision is not a question to make more time. The question is we need a commission, executive commission, to help Parliament and Council to find an agreement together, not just to every day repeat the proposal. We know now the proposal. Now we need to go into our idea, the Council idea, the Parliament idea, to try to balance, to fix together. Thanks.
The question is, Martin, one of my more colourful members of my NFU Council, but I think his views about whether we can trust DEFRA to be getting a right or fair deal, I think would be echoed by most of my council, even if it wouldn't be put quite as toughly as ever put it. Would you like to pick that up?
What a charming pass, Peter. Thank you. The formal position is that of course you can trust DEFRA, and of course you can trust the government. The slightly more persuasive way of putting it.
I think you heard my comments yesterday, which I know caused some squirming when I said DEFRA's got form in the past on CAP reform.
I think there is a very serious issue here about how we make the greening requirements relevant to the farming and environmental conditions of individual regions. And if you're going to do that, you need to provide some flexibility to member states and regions to make it relevant. That creates, you know, if I'm sat in Peter's chair, if I'm sat in your chair, that creates some risk that your member state and your region might face a set of political pressures which are different to those applying in other member states and other regions, and you may end up with something slightly more constraining. We will work quite hard to avoid that and to ensure that we get equivalence wherever possible. What I don't want to do is to pretend to this audience that equivalence is straightforward and it's all going to be fine.
Andrew Watson, and I've got one up on the side here as well.
Thank you, Peter. Mr. De Castro, as someone who farms in a way that tries to respond to the market and also runs a number of environmental schemes, what more can we do to help you take your view forward to prevail over the Commission in accepting the principle of market response? And finally, a quick one for Mr. Nesbitt. As a business that's still waiting for payments from 2005, 2009 and 2010, as well as this year, please ensure some simplification. Thank you.
Okay. You know, one of the points we always talk in our committee in the European Parliament is we miss the word competitiveness. Competitiveness, the role of the farmers into the market, it's quite essential one, because we want the CAP to allow our farmers to be more competitive on the market, to be more strong, to manage together the crisis, so to have more instrument to manage the crisis. But the core of the problem is how our farmer will produce more, because there is a lack of the of instrument to increase the European agricultural potential. We really have this problem. European is an importing area, a very strong importing area, and we are not sure that in the future we will find all the food that we need. Talk about soybean, 90% of the soybean we import. We now import sugar. We import a lot of other products. So the first question have to ask, the future CAP will allow the farmers to be strong and competitive enough to increase the agricultural potential? And I think we should know something more on this direction.
Martin, he had a question for you about the simplicity.
Yeah, I'm finding myself preferring the questions to Paolo De Castro than the questions to me. So, but just to pick up on one of the things that Paolo said.
That's why I'm
I think the Commission proposals are sometimes based on a very static view of European agriculture, and they contain phrases like protecting or maintaining the productive capacity of European agriculture. And that sort of protecting what we have at the moment is not actually going to be enough. We need to maximize the productive capacity within the constraints of sustainability. And I think the more we can get that sort of idea and that sort of focus on competitiveness, on translating the fruits of research into improving productive capacity, the better it will be. On the question of simplification, we are very focused on the importance of simplification and getting to a deal which is deliverable in England and the other parts of the UK. We have been scarred by the experience last time around, and one of the things we need to focus on is not just the detail of the European legislation, but also thinking through what are the implementation choices that ministers and administrators are going to need to make, and how do we make sure that we have made those choices in time in a way that is balanced by deliverability on the ground. So we are very focused on this. Because we're very focused on this, I'm not going to say to you blithely that we'll get it right. It's difficult, but I think there's more focus on it this time than there was last time.
If you're wondering why I'm not having a gratuitous kick at the previous administration, I've got the Shadow Secretary of State, Mary Cray, and Hugh Rankin-Davis at the front, so I'm behaving myself, obviously, on this occasion. I've got Peter Bragnock here, please, and then who's, I can't even see who it is on that side on there.
Hello, Peter. It's John Hunter.
John Hunter, and then Peter.
I couldn't help but bring this all down to a more simple level. Listening to the Commissioner yesterday saying that he was going to give more power to the Member States, and then listening to Caroline saying what she had to say, and then listening to Martin just now from DEFRA, and then Gail. Well, I know who I'm going to put my money's trust in, and that's Gail. I'm sorry, Martin, but you've lost it with me, and I want common sense. I'm not after simplicity. If that's simplicity, I don't want it. Our life is complicated enough. I think we've done everything. We've gone down the ELS. We're doing everything on the farm at the moment, and this is just another nail. And this 3-crop thing is the most worrying thing all for some of us. This 3-crop rule. I can sort of go along with the greening, but that 3-crop rule, I'm afraid that is a no-no.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's take Peter Braddock as well, and we'll come back in a minute.
Thank you. The Commission impact assessment on greening measures shows that poultry farmers in Europe will suffer from income reductions somewhere between 10 and 25% of their income. I'd just like to know what the European Parliament and what DEFRA are going to be doing to prevent this perverse outcome where farmers who receive no direct payments under the Common Agricultural Policy will actually be paying the most for its reform.
Well, I don't know now how, if I understood well your question. You say the poultry can have some specific damage of this proposal because they don't receive first payment. Well, I don't know exactly the case of United Kingdom, but in the country where we didn't get the regionalization, we are having a debate to try to find a way to spread all the first direct payment in the way that we have an equilibrium between farmers, all farmers.
I think the real concern, though, what we've picked up from the poultry farmers is that, by taking 5% out, and Gail very deliberately picked Bedfordshire and Cambridgeshire out, as is my own county, as being an impact. Taking a large chunk of land out of production is going to put cereal costs up, and that will really impact on the cost of production for the poultry sector.
It's true.
And that's the concern.
Yeah, that's the concern, and it cannot be it cannot be an objective of policy to put prices up artificially, and therefore have an impact on those who are price takers for the inputs to their businesses. Clearly, not just poultry farms, but other livestock businesses as well. I think the price impact is potentially exaggerated in the Commission's impact assessment, and what we need to do as the Council and the European Parliament is ensure that we don't have the sort of impact on production that the Commission is modelling in its impact assessment, and therefore not the same impact on price. If I could just take the opportunity to come back to the issue with the 3-crop rule and crop diversification, I pretty much entirely agree that is a bonkers idea. I've possibly been more diplomatic in my expressions of it than I should be. It doesn't tackle the issue of crop rotation that it's designed to tackle, and it poses real constraints on the business decisions of farms which may be doing precisely what they ought to be doing for environmental objectives. In a sense, and you mentioned ELS and what you're doing under ELS, and in a sense, we've had this debate in England already. We've had the Curry report and then the development of environmental stewardship, and the principle that a chunk of the subsidy should be used to deliver environmental benefits across the farmed landscape. To some extent, what the Commission is proposing now in the greening proposals is catching up with what has already happened in England. And we need to make sure, as the Secretary of State said yesterday, and not just in England, but also in some other countries which have moved ahead with environmental schemes. And we need to make sure, as the Secretary of State was saying yesterday, and as Commissioner Cioloş was saying yesterday, that you don't punish the champions.
Gail.
Thank you, Peter. The concern is on the impact of production, and I would say that there are solutions there in terms of moving away from, as I described, land-hungry measures towards measures which are much more focused on efficient use of resources. So we have George Lyon here today, whose report in Parliament very much picked up the need to move towards measures such as soil management, which again, English farmers are championing in terms of soil management reviews that you guys do. Getting recognition for that work, looking at things like the voluntary initiative where we have looked to reduce inputs which have a beneficial impact both on your economic bottom line but also in terms of the environmental delivery. Dealing with climate change, looking at things like genetic breeding within the livestock sector to reward those farmers who are able to improve genetics, potentially reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So very much a refocusing of the greening approach onto these win-win measures. If I may, I mean, what we have to be concerned about is that we have set the bar in England high already because of our delivery of our agri-environment schemes and the campaign for the farmed environment. What we have to guard against is that bar being pushed up further here at an English level. What we want to see is other member states coming up to that same level, which is why we call for a recognition, an exemption for those farmers who are already operating up at this level.
Just, if I may, Peter, just 10 seconds to say. First, I totally agree with the problem of a three-crop rate. So we need to find a solution. This is a question of the UK, but it's a question of many different countries. Second, the question of price. Well, this is a very big question because the expectation of the commodity price in the future is to increase, to continue to increase. So this means that we have to focus on the problem of scarcity and the problem of equilibrium on the market, innovation and research. This AP doesn't do anything about this. I think we need to refocus on the problem of innovation. I don't want to come back again to the problem of biotech in the previous panel, but one of the solutions is there.
I'm sorry, Guy, I'm going to usurp you if I don't mind and go to George Lyons as pushing waving his hand down here, author of the Lyon report as well.
Thank you, Peter. I think we've heard quite clearly from the presentations that the one-size-fits-all approach that the Commission has proposed can't work because different member states have already moved at different speeds on the environmental agenda. And in some ways, the Commission seems to have missed the boat completely in relation to the presentation we heard earlier about the need for a more carbon, energy and nutrient-efficient industry being the single biggest challenge facing agriculture, so the need to produce more from less. What I think we as parliamentarians need, though, is the detailed analysis of some of the alternatives that we want to put on the table, and indeed have done so in the DESH report. I put a number of suggestions on the table. But what we need is properly worked up solutions that can't be knocked down by the Commission, because the Commission are in the bunker and they've done no other work looking at other measures that might be used under the green proposals. Green cover was the only other one they looked at, and they found that it couldn't be done because it didn't fit right across the whole of Europe. So I guess the challenge to NFU and to DEFRA is we're willing to put the alternative on the table. You need to tell us exactly how these alternatives will work in practice to make sure we don't get it wrong and actually put alternatives there that make things worse rather than better.
Thank you, George, for that. That's a challenge for us that we'll take away. I thought for a moment you were going to advocate a redistribution from England to Scotland, but I'm reassured that you didn't go down that controversial line.